Good morning and welcome into the number one Group of Five football podcast in the world. This is the Group of Five, guys. Our mission is to be the voice for the Group of Five football programs that the mainstream sports media absolutely refuses to be. We need everybody's help to do that. We need you to follow us on all the social platforms at Group of Five, guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Give us a 5-star rating and a review. Leave a comment. Most important thing you could do, tell your family and friends all about us. On this episode, guys, this Mountain West now is going to be fun. We got a lot of little side stories, a lot of back stories, and it's a damn good conference when it comes to playing football anyway. So we're going to break all that down today. We're going to talk about plenty more. Hope you enjoy the show. Have you had it from somebody born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, at a tailgate? Doubt it.
I said Michael Pratt has got to show up and play, and boy did he. 394 yards, 4 touchdowns, 48 rushing yards on the ground, and another touchdown.
Projected getting drafted between the first and third round. Like, that's incredible.
That's
The wide receivers are absolutely stacked for the Group of Five.
Yeah, I really appreciate you do for the Group of Five programs, and I think it's great. I think we should get more of this. But you guys are on the forefront of this, and
so I'm thankful for this. I'm glad that you're talking about the Group of Five because I think they get overlooked.
But it's a ton of fun to watch a guy go to the NFL from a Nevada or a Colorado State or a Middle Tennessee or an App State, and fans follow that kid.
Well, good morning, Jeff. Happy Thursday, my friend.
Good morning, my man. It is the fourth straight day talking college football in the mornings.
Yep.
Tell you what, the coffee's the only thing that's really keeping me going these days.
Yeah. Me too. And I, you guys know, I do have a bit of a caffeine issue, bit of a problem. I'm not afraid to admit that. They say, denial's the first step. I ain't denying anything. It's a problem. Because right now, Jeff, I actually skipped over the coffee. I'm about to get a little workout in after this show.
There you go.
Shout out to the Troy Trojans, by the way. I've got a pre-workout in here, and I'm fairly certain it's got 350 milligrams. What's that?
I said, hold that cup back up. There you go.
Yeah, Troy. Troy souvenir cup. Big souvenir cup guy. In our house, in the kitchen, like if you go to get a drink, if you're over, you want to get some water, get a soda, you're looking for a glass. We ain't gonna have many, but what we are gonna have is a bunch of souvenir cups because I keep them. Got a little pre-workout in there, 350 milligrams of caffeine. So we'll get a little pump in after this. Then we'll go on and try to enjoy the workday as best we can. Probably sip on some coffee throughout the day. But you know what, man? That's part of it. That is
fun.
part of it.
I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, ain't no doubt about it. And plus, it'll get down to 3 days here next week. So this 4-day stretch, little intense, I will say. What's that sweatshirt you got there, though?
It's an Oakland A's sweatshirt.
A's.
I got my Fort
That's
Air Raid
interesting.
hat. Shout out Matt Mummy, offensive
That's
coordinator.
interesting. You went baseball, and you went kind of OG baseball.
Yeah. OG RIP to the Oakland A's because they're going to be moving out. I think they play 2 seasons in Sacramento before their stadium in Vegas is done. It's truthfully a damn shame that the city of Oakland has lost 3 professional sports teams in less than a decade. But tends to happen when you run your city in the ground like that. But anyways,
Yeah.
Still rock the A's gear. Still a fan.
Yeah, there's no question. And that's always frustrating too when you have something that happens with a team you like and you don't, whether it be you don't agree with some stand they take or some political statement they make or a player does something, and it's like, man, it's the home team. You know what I mean? You're rooting you're more so rooting for the city than you are any of the individual people that are a part of it. But anyway, we got Mountain West today on this Thursday, Jeff, and this conference has probably more things happening than any other conference. You got I think you got what, 6 or 7 new head coaches in this conference. You got 2 of them with Tedford and Anderson at Utah State, go halfway through the summer before they're not the coach anymore. And then, of course, you got the controversy now in Boise, where Maddox Madsen wins the quarterback job. Um, so so let's first. I do want to say, and by the way, I don't know, I need to dig into this, but Blake Anderson, I saw put out a tweet yesterday, actually, from his legal team that they are suing Utah State University. I think in general, without agreeing or disagreeing with anybody, it seems like a player was accused of sexual assault. And according to the school, Blake Anderson didn't follow protocol on reporting it to the proper people. Blake Anderson saying he did exactly what protocol said. They fired him. He's mad. He's suing them. Now, I typically in these scenarios, whether or not, the reason for firing is accurate or not, a lot of times it's because they're ready to move on because of losing, and they're going to find, and they'll it's almost like when politicians, don't let a tragedy go to waste, right?
Yeah.
And so something obviously went down, and whether or not he handled it correctly or not, I would be willing to bet that if they were winning, um, you know, it wouldn't have went the way it went.
Yeah, it's just the whole situation is just so crazy, and you hate to see anybody go through anything like that. But then it seems like there's some other stuff from the university side that becomes a he said she said type of situation. And who do you believe? The coach that just got fired essentially, or the university that who knows behind closed doors? Maybe they wanted him out, and this was an opportunity to get him out. I have no idea until we get more information. But it just sucks that this, sucks that it all happened, and it sucks even more that it's right before the season, because you got a roster full of kids that worked their tail off and did the right thing and had nothing to do with it, and they're having to pay, just part of the collateral damage for it.
Yeah, and with all the other things that have gone on at Utah State and with Blake Anderson and his family, that's got to be a very tight, or had to be a very tight knit. They're just going through a lot over there, and so. But anyway, we'll see. I want to say this about the Mountain West as I was doing my prep. All the experts, the Phil Steeles of the world, you know how they rank the position groups per conference?
Yeah.
Well, this was the one conference where outside of Boise State, Phil Steele's got everybody kind of in the mix, right? Like all the other conferences, it's pretty, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's ranked. Where Phil Steele's got this Mountain West where there's a lot of ties. He's got Boise, 1 or 2 in just about every position group. And then it seems like every other team is just across the board 3, 4, 6, 1, 2, and so this is a very balanced conference, in my opinion. And, Boise tends to figure out a way to come out on top of this thing. It seems like all the time, but I don't know. We're going to dig into it a little more. But speaking of Boise State, breaking news a little bit announced earlier in the week that Maddox Madsen has won the job over Malachi Nelson, who, of course, was the former 5-star recruit, former number 1 recruit in the country before he went to USC, now transferred to Boise State, was expected by everybody in the media to win that job. And I think, honestly, expected to win that job and take Boise State to another notch to where they were competing for this college football playoff thing. And now a little bit of that has died down. I want to go to you on this, Jeff. First, your opinion. So to me, there's 3 or 4 ways you can look at this, right? You can look at this the way that I think the majority of people in the media are looking at it, where Malachi Nelson's not that good. The 5-star rating was, they overrated him, and he wasn't that good. It was a miss. It was a miss in recruiting. Way number 2 is Maddox Madsen's just better. Maddox Madsen got better He's the guy. Way number 3, um, I don't know, I forgot where I was going. Way number 3 would be, that the coach is wrong.
Yeah.
And there's favoritism or whatever reason there is. But I want to go to you and get your thoughts on this. Just your overall thoughts at first.
Yeah, when I saw it, my first like inclination was, man, I'm happy for freaking Maddox Madsen. This is a kid that has been putting in the time, putting in the work, was banged up in the spring, but fought through injury and won the job. And I think, and you're seeing a little bit of this at Georgia Southern as well when they had announced their starter, is you get this portion of your fan base, and every portion has it, that they think that they know better than all the coaches that spend every single day, not only on the field, but in the locker room, in the weight room, in meeting rooms, on campus with their players. And if you think that Malachi Nelson, and I saw this on Twitter, and this is just like blows my mind. One person was like, Malachi Nelson is the best quarterback that Boise has ever had. And I responded, and I was like, wow, that is a strong statement considering, the quarterbacks that Boise has had and what they have done based off of no time on the field. And the guy was like, well, I saw him in the spring game, and this guy can just make every throw. I was like, that's you're banking a lot on a spring game, which is like not a full game where they're not getting hit. Like, so, I would say to the fan base, the people that are up in arms, and so you don't trust your head coach is what essentially you're saying. You're saying he made the wrong decision for whatever you think he made the wrong decision for, but yet he's the one that's seen him the most in practice, on campus, within the team. Because the quarterback position, like, yes, you have to be able to perform on the field. Correct. But in my opinion, like, that is such a smaller portion than people think of the equation when you look at a quarterback. Like, quarterback, you have to be a leader of men. You have to be able to do the right thing all the time. You got to lead by example. You got to make sure everybody's on the same page, not only on the field, off the field. Like, it's so much more. And when you get in these locker rooms, you legitimately can feel who the team gravitates towards. Who are they going to play for harder at the quarterback position when you're on offense? And you got to factor all those things in. And I think ultimately what it came down to was Madsen was more consistent. Madsen has more experience of live bullets, and it just shows. And there's a reason why how many freshman quarterbacks that don't have experience under them come in and start, like, in the entire college football world. Like, it does not happen very often, and it doesn't happen because they're not ready more times than not. And if you are starting a freshman quarterback, it's probably because you missed on recruiting in years past, and you don't have a guy that you were able to develop and that is seasoned and ready to take your team to the next level. So I'm happy for Maddox Madsen. I hate that he's getting shit on in the media because he doesn't deserve that, and it doesn't do anything for the team. And it sucks for Nelson because, I feel like he's getting some flack, and people are saying, oh, he's not what he should have been. I haven't seen both of these guys enough in camp to really tell you, and neither has anybody on Twitter. So it's like, respect your head coach's decision. He's in that position for a reason, and support your team. You can have your opinion, but nobody's seen these guys more than the coaches.
Well, and yeah, you hit a lot right there. Number one, I'm absolutely happy for Maddox Madsen because if you remember last year, he had to beat out Taylon Green, who, by the way, is going to start in the SEC this year. So, Maddox Madsen beat him out and pretty much won that job last year. And then, they get Malachi Nelson, and Maddox Madsen, you got to know. I mean, he's the guy that's kind of just not being allowed to be the guy. They keep bringing in the new guy to pass him up. A lot of the fan reaction reminds me of and I'm not comparing Boise State fans to these idiots, but the Texas fans that are wondering when Arch Manning is going to play. And they're wondering, is Arch Manning just not good? It's like, no, he's just not better than Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
Not right now, he's not. He might be in 2-3 years, but like you said, they're not ready. And that's the other thing. Malachi Nelson, if he hangs around, depending on what he does, he might still turn out to be the best quarterback Boise State's ever had. Just not yet. And the other part of it is a spring game or practice or anything, even in a game. A lot of times you see a throw. It's like pro day with these guys, right? A lot of guys can make throws. A lot of guys have what they say is elite arm talent. But even if he makes a good throw in the spring game, only the coaches know if that was the right read or if they made the right throw, if they missed the guy that was wide open for a touchdown before that, or if they took a risk, threw the deep ball when they had a guy wide open for the first down. And those are things that, sure, it might look nice, it might look like a good throw, but it was the wrong throw. And I'm not saying this is the case with this because I didn't watch the spring game or anything like that. But there's things like that happen, and you're seeing people, like you said, in spring game. It's a vanilla. The defenses are running a very vanilla defense. They're not bringing everything blitz wise and coverage wise that they would in a game. So there's a lot, that you wouldn't see through that. And then here's the thing too. You're either shitting on Maddox Madsen because you don't think he's good, or you're shitting on Malachi Nelson because you think he's a bust. And both of those are untrue.
Yeah. It's probably
We
somewhere
don't
in the
know
middle.
yet. Yeah, it's probably somewhere in the middle. It's probably where they're and here's the other part of it is they probably waited this long because they were waiting for Malachi Nelson. They wanted to give him every opportunity to win the job because they do think he has the talent. But if you want your coach to make a decision to make everybody happy, and then what happens when it doesn't work out, right? Then what happens when they start the guy that the fans want and they go to Georgia Southern and he doesn't look good, or they go to Oregon and he looks terrible. And the other part of this is the announcement was he's the week 1 starter. Now, God, I hope they don't do the same quarterback thing they did last year. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, maybe they get through Georgia Southern and Oregon, and I don't have their schedule right in front of me, but maybe they get an FCS opponent or somebody they're confident they can beat. Maybe Malachi gets some spin there.
Yeah, they got Portland State
And then maybe
after
he
Oregon.
earns. Yeah. So I can almost promise you they'll both play in that game. So maybe they throw him out there, get him some live bullets. You got to remember the guy only played like 3 snaps at USC.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
And he was dealing with an injury too. So maybe that injury is worse than you think, and that's another thing that we don't know. But anyway, we go all day on this, but let's talk teams now. So let's talk favorites. So Boise State was the clear favorite. Are they still for you, Jeff?
No. And honestly, they weren't. I think when we did our top 25 group of 5 poll, like I think I had them 6 or 7. I think that, and I'm going to probably piss off some Boise State fans, but that's okay. Like I think this team is solid. I think they benefit off of having probably the best running back in the country in Ashton Jeanty. I think they benefit of the aura and brand of Boise State, and I think they're a very good team. I don't have them as a favorite this year. And it doesn't have anything to do with the decision that was just made. I particularly liked Madsen over Malachi Nelson before the decision was made. So, but yeah, I mean, this team starts, in my opinion, with Ashton Jeanty. When you have a running back of this caliber, and the rest of the room is solid as well, he can cover up a lot of mistakes and holes. And you just, as a defense, have to, give so much focus onto him because he's that good. He's elite. But he'll cover up holes in the offensive line, miss blocks because he can make people miss. When you have that great of a running back, it opens up stuff on the outside because you get favorable matchups. And that's why I think they are a good team. And then, I talked about our top defensive linemen. I talked about Ahmad Hassanian. I think this guy is going to be contending for the lead in the country in sacks this year. This dude has a motor and it does not stop. If he doesn't hit on the first move on a tackle, he's got a plan B and he's spinning back inside and he's going to go get the quarterback. And in this conference, all these teams throw the heck out of the ball. So he's going to have plenty of opportunity to go and hunt. I'm just not sure they have the depth on the rest of the defensive line, and there are some really good offensive lines in this conference. But we're going to find out quick. I think that Georgia Southern game is going to be closer than people think. The receiver room for me doesn't. I mean, it doesn't move me. There's some good players, but they had some transfers that left, and I think it left some big holes. So I had Boise State as a contender in this conference.
Really? I still had Boise as my favorite. Now, as I was prepping, this was of course before the announcement, but to be honest with you, I think announcing Madsen as the starter, it kind of settles it a little bit. It's more of a known. With Malachi Nelson, it was going to be a little unknown. I mean, you kind of know what you're going to get with Maddox Madsen. And for me, Boise State, we said it last year. They often start a little slower than they
They do.
probably should, and then they find their way. And I think you're absolutely right. I think I'm guilty of this. I think everybody's guilty of. Boise State, to their credit, has established the largest brand in the group of five, the largest national brand. So I think respect from group of five fans, from the national media, is there with them. And we're almost guilty of doing what we get so upset at the national media for doing with the SEC or some of these blue bloods, as you want to call them. I think that we do that a little bit with Boise State. However, they continue to prove us right. They continue to be good.
They deserve that.
So I have,
they deserve
yeah,
that.
that's exactly right. And just to add a little bit, yeah, Ashton Jeanty, I mean, he's probably the number one NFL prospect in the group of five, at least for right now. Senior Bowl watch list came out. There's a ton of guys on there. Can't wait to dig into that. And then just a shout out to the Boise State offensive line. We talked about Cage Casey on our Best O Lineman show. As good as Jeanty is, you're not that good without an O line. And so they've got to open up the holes for them, and they've got to protect Madsen or Nelson, whoever's in there. But I had Boise as a favorite. But then so who did you have as a favorite? I'm guessing you had the other team I'm about to talk about.
Yeah, and honestly, they would be for me in like clear cut, and I think they're the favorite. They're my favorite, and that's Fresno State. And they would be.
It's not where I was going to go.
They would be the clear cut favorite, in my opinion, if Tedford didn't step down. So that, and I think Tim Skipper's going to do a great job. He's been with the team, so you don't necessarily, it's not like a new guy coming in trying to build a whole new culture. Like the kids know him. He coached the bowl game last year. But I just think that when you have a coach like Jeff Tedford and the mind that he is and the tenure that he has, and just look at everything that he's done over his career, that's difficult when a guy like that goes away. But I think this offense has a ton of talent all over the place. Mikey Keene, I think he's going to stay healthier this year. I think he's going to make an improvement and at the areas where I thought he could be better last year. And then the offensive line to me is big. They're physical. It's around center Mose Vaveo. Like they are going to be able to move that line of scrimmage in the run game better, I think, than a year ago. Malik Sherrod and Elijah Gilliam are both great backs. They'll spell off of each other. They both kind of do different things. And then I think this receiver room is very talented. You get Jalen Moss coming back. He was the top receiver that's coming back from a year ago. Josiah Freeman should be a good deep threat. He's a big body guy, 6'3". But what excites me about this room is 2 FCS transfers. I'm going to take a page out of Tip's book. And I've talked about one of these kids more in depth over the last couple of weeks. But Raylan Sharp out of Missouri State, if you go look at his film, this kid is quick in and out of his breaks. He's got strong hands. He'll go up and make contested catches for a smaller guy. But just get him the ball in space, and he's going to make guys miss, and he can take it all the way. And then Cheaton James out of Idaho State, another kid who had over 1,000 yards last year receiving. Another phenomenal, they're kind of similar players, but another phenomenal receiver that's coming in. So I think this room has a lot of depth in it. And I just think that the defense will be improved from a year ago. They get Lockridge back. He was off of injury. Devo Bridges on the outside. I think he'll be a productive pass rusher. And then you get the UFC transfer. Hopefully he can pan out, and Corey Freeman to be that other bookend. If they can get pressure on the quarterback, I mean, this team to me, just if you look at the talent on it, they have a lot of it.
Did you say UFC transfer?
No, USC, Southern Cal.
I knew what you meant. I was like, well,
Yeah, Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Be careful now. Hey, to add to that, man, I think Mikey Keene is a lot better than he gets credit for. You got to remember back in 2021, it was him and Heisman favorite Dylan Gabriel down there in Central Florida. And Gabriel went down, and Mikey Keene came in and won 8 or 9 games. So I think he's not getting the credit that, and then he goes to Fresno and has to sit behind Hainer. So the guy, he's been behind 2 really, really good quarterbacks. And then last year he came in and looked pretty good. And I think this year is his chance to shine as a big time player. So that's what I'll say. So I had Fresno State down as a contender. My other favorite outside of Boise State was UNLV. And I think UNLV, they kind of dropped a little bit, towards the end of last year. By the way, good morning, Joe. Shout out to the YouTube chat. If you are on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere, go over to YouTube. That live chat gets going. Get a couple folks in there right now. It's always good to see Joe Judkins and Matt. I think Matt's been he's 4 days in a row. He's been the guy that's getting up with us every day. So shout out to him. But back to UNLV. We know about Ricky White. We know about the, Coach Marion's go-go offense, as they call it, 34.5 points per game last year. And they are really, really good up front. Tiger Shanks leads that O-line. But I'll let you talk about them. But this is another Tip brought it to our attention first.
Shout out to Tip.
Another FCS transfer, Holy Cross quarterback Matt Sluka. Only thing I wanted to say is the guy missed 2 games last year. Still threw for 1,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, only 5 picks, and then another over 1,200 yards rushing and another 9 touchdowns. Holy Cross, not only were they good in the FCS, but they took Army down to the wire, lost by 3 points. Took Boston College down to the wire, lost by 3 points. And I think I'll tell you this, man. So when I do my prep, Jeff, I take all of the magazines, the Phil Steele's, the Athlons, the Lindy's, and I dig through and I see where they compare. The only thing I just want to say about this is, and then I look at stats, I pull up YouTube, I watch some film, I do all that. The Athlon Sports doesn't even have Matt Sluka on the depth chart for UNLV. Yeah. So he's going to be the reason. I think for me, I would have had UNLV fall down a notch from a year ago until I watched Matt Sluka's tape.
It's ridiculous. Like, I was watching it again yesterday, and do yourself a favor. If you're a UNLV fan and you haven't already, or if you're a fan of any one of these other teams in the conference, like, go look at his tape from Holy Cross. Dude is a bucket of yards and touchdowns, not just throwing, but rushing as well. And this kid he's got a little different release on him, but the ball comes out of his hand quick and it gets the receiver on time before out of the break. Like, I'm impressed with Matthew Sluka, and I think he's going to be the difference maker for this team. And I'm going to say something. I think he's better. I think they upgraded from Maava.
I do too.
I really do. I think he's more talented than him. And I think you put Sluka with Brennan Marion, who, he's slowly becoming, and we'll see if he can put it year in and year out, sort of an offensive savant. And just being able to mesh different systems together has been impressive. Now, outside of Ricky White, Jacob DeJesus is a dynamic player. He returns punts and kicks. Just get him the ball in space, and that kid's going to do the rest. The thing that makes me a little nervous about UNLV, I think they have really good pieces on their defense. I'm just not sure they are top 3 in this conference. But if the offense is going to be as good as I think they're going to be, then their defense is plenty good enough to get them to the point of another conference championship game. I think the biggest not question mark, but what needs to happen is the two transfers, Tony Grimes from Texas A&M and Jalen, I think it's Catalan from Texas. If they can come in and bolster that back end of that defense, because they got Jackson Woodard, very good linebacker in the middle. I think they'll be fine, because you got to be able to cover receivers in this conference. So, man, look out for UNLV. I think they got all the pieces to make a run.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they get both Boise State and Fresno. They get in Vegas this
And they
year, and then
avoid
they do not
Wyoming
play
too.
Air Force. Yep, yep. So their schedule. I mean, obviously playing Boise and Fresno is not going to be easy, but you'd rather that game at home.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, I'll say this on Coach Marion. I think, I hope he stays, but I think he's going to be in line for a head coaching job soon. And I also think, as much as I hate to say this, I think Barry Odom is going to start getting some phone calls too.
Yeah.
And so, and if you remember last year, I will be the first one to admit this. I thought they were early on pulling the plug, but then I thought they had a great hire in Barry Odom. And I remember saying last year, look out now, they got a defensive coach. And when we had Coach Odom on the podcast, he was like, yeah, the defense still wasn't very good, but that offense was good. But I think both him and Coach Marion are going to be pretty hot names across the board, especially if they have another good year. So you had Fresno and UNLV as your favorite. I had Boise and UNLV as a favorite. I had Fresno as a contender. You have Boise as a contender. I also, as much as it pained me to have this, I had a little no pun intended with Air Force, but I had a little PTSD looking back at Air Force last season.
Yeah.
But I still had them as a contender this year. I think them as a program, and Coach Calhoun, what he's been able to do over the last several years, they're a 10-win team every year. You can almost count on it. And what he's done is, no matter who's there, they don't deal with the transfer portal. They don't have to deal with NIL, for good and bad, right? They can't go get somebody to fill a spot. But they're not going to lose as many guys, because after you've done your sophomore year there, you stuck. So they're always going to have guys. They're always going to have a really good grasp of what they're trying to do in that offense. They lose a lot, though. They do lose a lot of guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, listen, they started 8-0 last year. I think they got into up to number 17 in the country. And then just quarterback Zach Larrier went down, and they just had an all-time collapse. Now, I'll also say this. They also played their really good teams when they started losing those games.
Yeah.
So that's part of it too, right? Quarterback goes down, and you have your tougher games towards the back end of the season. But it's crazy to start 8. They started 8-0, and they had their worst season in 6 years.
That's
at Air
pretty
Force.
wild. That's a wild
Isn't
stat.
that crazy?
Yeah.
It went from being the best season they've ever had. Potential. I mean, it's going to be the first time they won the Mountain West, is what it looked like. And it looked like they were on pace for a New Year's game. And boy, let me tell you, an Oregon Air Force game would have been talk about a contrast.
Seriously.
And talk about an interesting game. But I still had them in as a contender this year.
Yeah, I do too. And the main reason why is they avoid Boise State and UNLV in their schedule. And you're avoiding two of the, top teams in the conference. And, their ending stretch, looks halfway decent outside of Fresno State. So, you finish with Nevada and San Diego State. So I think where in years past, maybe they've kind of trailed off at the end. I think if they can have a decent beginning of the season, get those young guys acclimated, and then just make it to the end, I think they'll be in the conversation, especially because of their schedule.
Yeah. All right. Did you have anybody else in that contender range, or do you want to move on to the sleepers?
I have one more.
I'm guessing this is going to be who I have as my sleeper, but go for it.
I'm going with the Rams of Colorado State.
I knew that was coming.
Jay Norvell. This is year 3 for him and company. I think this is where you need to see a jump. I think they're talented on offense as all get out. BFN is going to have an even better year than he had last year. You pretty much have all your talent coming back. You got Torrey Horton, who's one of the top receivers in the country. And by the way, this conference is absolutely loaded at the receiver position. It's stupid.
Loaded.
But yeah, you got Torrey Horton coming back. The rest of the room will complement him. I think the key to this team, though, is running back Justin Marshall. He came on late last year, and we talked about him a couple weeks ago as well. I think the last 3 games he had over 100 yards rushing. Really dynamic player. And we had Matt Mummy on. He was just like, yeah, this kid turned it on, and I don't think he's going to look back. I think if Colorado State can run the ball better than they did a year ago, and Marshall can keep that production, man, how are you going to stop this offense? You're gonna bring extra guys in the box. You cannot do that because they're just gonna, they're gonna throw the crap out of the ball. They're gonna go 5 wide and get you out of that quick. So I think the defense worries me a little bit. You lose Kamara, but their back end and Howell and Blackburn are big time hitting safeties. So if their defense can improve just a little bit and keep opposing offenses at bay, this offense is going to be able to score. They're going to be fun to watch. But I have them as a contender. I like their schedule as well. They open up at Texas. That's a tough game, but the rest of their schedule, I think, is very manageable. They avoid Boise and UNLV. So, if they can get hot, they play Fresno State the second to last game of the season. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. And I want to say something too. I think Fowler Nicolosi is getting a little disrespect after the comments about him and Horton turning down the NIL. I think that's outlandish. First of all, I think that is the national media not understanding how good this kid is. Because you got to remember now, last year he came in that Colorado game. That was his first start. That week 2 game. So he was not. It calmed your nerves a little bit for Boise State fans. BFN was not the starter going into the season. And then he started the last 11 games. And he did all that as essentially QB2 as a true freshman. So now he's got a little hype. Now he's got some rapport with Torrey Horton and his guys. I think he is about to take a gigantic leap. And if you thought he didn't get offered $600K in the portal this year, he's going to get offered it coming up this summer.
Yeah.
So I think he's getting slept on a little bit. One question for you, Jeff. What number did Mo Camara wear last year? Was it number 8?
It was a single digit, wasn't it?
Sure was. That was all I had. That's all I wanted to mention.
Your damn single digit defensive lineman.
I need a stats guy to do some research on that. Single digit interior defensive lineman. Has there ever been a bad one? I don't know.
Yeah.
Surely there's been a bad one, and after that, they stopped letting them do it. Because I remember when that first, in my mind, when it first became a thing. I remember this would have been, I would have been in high school, and high school kids always had weird numbers in high school. Everybody wanted single digits and all that. But I remember Clemson, I think, had like 2 defensive ends in single digits. And they were, I don't know if it was them or not, but I want to say it was Gaines Adams. You remember that name? Gaines Adams. And,
vaguely. Was Cleveland Farrell the other one?
And I don't know. Charles Bennett, I'm remembering. I don't know if either of them were 2. For some reason, I'm remembering those 2 DNs at Clemson. And when we used to go, when we growing up, we'd go to Miami games. Those 2 were like,
yeah.
Jeez. But anyway, do you have any other? So I had Colorado State as my sleeper. So did you have a sleeper?
I do have a sleeper.
Who you got?
Cowboys of Wyoming, my friend. I think that and excuse me, still getting over this cold. I like Wyoming for a couple reasons. They avoid Fresno and they get Boise State at home late in the season. So it gives them some time to kind of figure things out. That's just, when you go into Laramie, that is a tough place to play. But Craig Bolt's gone. Jay Salvell's in there, but he's familiar with the program. I think you're going to see a very similar style of Wyoming team. They're going to be a great defense, hard nose on offense, and they're going to punch you in the mouth. That's what they're going to do. I'm not completely sold on Evan Sadoba taking over for Andrew Peasley. He's a big athletic kid, like Wyoming seems to get. We just got to see more of him. Harrison Whaley, I think, is a great running back. He is, 1,000 yards rushing last year, averaged almost 6 yards a carry. So I think that's going to be huge. I think their O-line is going to be big and solid. Center Noah, so tough. Nofafia Tulafono and Jack Walsh, they're going to be the interior lineman that's really going to set the tone for that group. If you watch them on film, I mean, they're just maulers. They get after it. And then this defense is going to be their front defensive line across the board is just physical. They're nasty. The Italian Jordan Bertignolis, he's going to get after the quarterback. And then their schedule, the way it sets up, I think they got a shot. I think if they can, the middle of that schedule, if they can get past, Utah State, I think it'll be a decent team. Colorado State, and then they get that Boise game. The rest of their schedule looks very nice. So they could hang around if they can, get that game at the end of the year against Boise. There's no reason why they shouldn't be in the championship game.
Can we skip to the underrated or underappreciated section for my comments on Wyoming? Is that all right with you, Jeff?
Yeah.
And then we'll so this is what I had as my underrated player. I had Wyoming at home is what I had as my underrated.
Like
7-0 at home last year, 1-4 on the road. Now, granted, they played Air Force, Boise State, and UNLV on the road last year, so that's part of it. But what that means is they get Air Force and Boise in Wyoming, in Laramie this year. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is my read on Wyoming. They are not going to win this conference, but they are going to ruin somebody else's season.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do. That's kind of Wyoming for me anymore. I don't even think like this is a sleeper anymore. I think this is a known thing. This is what they do. They're going to be really good. They're going to ruin some seasons, but they're probably going to lose to somebody they shouldn't. But that's what I have as my underrated is the Wyoming home field. 7-0 last year. Who'd you have as underrated?
I had defensive end Ahmad Hassanian. I think that in the I was looking at it from the perspective of like a national media. I don't think anybody's talking about this kid, and I think he's just a phenomenal pass rusher. And I talked about it a little bit ago. Just keep an eye out for him, man. I think, he had 12.5 sacks last year. I could see him getting 14, 15 this year as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I like that pick. So let's go back to player of the year. This was the most difficult for me, and then I'm gonna end up going chalk. So on my notes here, I have Ricky White, Torrey Horton, Ashton Genty, BFN, and Jalen Royals on here. It's gonna be one of them, I think.
All deserving.
I think it's gonna come down to either Genty. If Boise State does well, I think it'll be Genty. If Colorado State, depending on how the game against Coach Prime and the Buffaloes go, you could see BFN and or Torrey Horton just all of the sudden be the national media's darlings if they put on a show, which they did last year. They just lost that game. So I'm gonna be safe. I'm gonna go Genty. Mainly because you shit on Boise all morning, so I need to kind of save us a little bit for that. Because now I'm going to see these people. By the way, if any Boise State fans are traveling to Statesboro, come link up. I don't know, that's a long way, and you may be traveling to Oregon, huh?
I said they should have at least a little.
Yeah, they get some family and friends.
Get to ride the plane and stuff.
Link up, man. I'll introduce you to some really good tailgates down there in Statesboro, but I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to see. I love Statesboro, number one, and I've been a bunch, but I can't wait to see Boise in person again. We saw them last year. I want to see, me, Jeff. I'm gonna be looking at calves, glutes, eye test. So I want to see. I want to see how they look, how they compare.
You better, you better turn in your notes post game so I can go over them and look at them, overview them on the show.
I'm going to start doing that. That's one thing I'm going to start doing is bringing it. Maybe go old school. Maybe a clipboard down there.
Take the pen.
A little number 2. A little number 2 Dixie Ticonderoga pencil. I mean, my God, that might be. I might start wearing a collared shirt.
Well, I was going to say you should have like just dress up like you're like a scout, like The pencil and the little visor there, you pull it out.
I'm gonna look like freaking Matt Patricia when he's coaching the Lions with his freaking pencil, looking like a slob. Anyway, so who'd you have player of the year?
Yeah, and I talked a bunch about him already. I think Matthew Sluka in this offense is going to be a player of the year. Now, for some reason, one of these other kids beat him out, then it's going to be them. But whoever the quarterback is in this offense, but I'm pretty certain it's going to be Sluka. This kid's dynamic, so I think he gets it.
Yeah, and I'm just to echo what you said earlier. Do yourself a favor if you're just a football fan. You remember back in the day when you'd go YouTube, Noel Devine's highlight film and who was it? Pat White, all those big time kids. Go watch Matt Sluka now. It's pretty entertaining. Most important conference game.
Question. Before we get into the rest of that list, do you want to just hit a couple of these other teams?
Yeah,
it's
my fault completely. First let's hit Utah State because that's who I would have had next.
Yeah,
and a lot of it is the coach leaving, but I just think it's horrible timing. So I think that's a tough recovery. But I just want to shout out Jalen Royals again. 15 touchdowns a year ago.
Dog, dude.
And he would be in the conversation with the Torrey Hortons and the Ricky Whites if Utah State puts together a decent season.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've named their day one starter yet. But you got, Spencer Petras and Bryson Barnes are the two guys battling it out right now. We'll see who gets it. But yeah, you got a kid like Jalen Royals. That kid, man, he's fun to watch. Go watch him.
San Diego State, I think that Sean Lewis hire is a grand slam for them. I think he's an offensive guy. I think he'll be able to recruit there. And they got that nice new stadium. They gotta do something to fill it quickly. And I think if nothing else, it'll be an exciting brand of football to watch. So I think they'll start selling tickets with that. And then I think in turn, that'll start producing recruits. Give it a year or two for San Diego State. And I think the Aztecs. Now, if they decide they want to go link up with the Oregon State and them in the Pac-12, then, F them. But
yeah,
give it a year or two, and I think Sean Lewis will have them rolling.
Yeah, I agree. I like Sean Lewis. They named Danny O'Neal their starter, who's a true freshman who graduated high school early so he could compete in spring ball. He wins the job, and like I said earlier, I'm not sure what that says about your quarterback room when a true freshman is coming in and getting the nod, but I checked out his huddle film. I mean, kid's not a bad player, at all. Kid can throw it. He can run it. I think he's going to struggle this season just because it's such a big transition. But I think they're a couple years away.
Can I bring up one other point on the whole quarterback naming situation for these coaches?
Yeah.
I think when you have the obvious guy and you name the other guy, either you got balls as a coach or it wasn't as close as the fans want to think it is.
Yeah.
Because the easy decision would be to I'll just choose who the fans want or who everybody thinks, and I'll just be. It's just like drafting the number one pick, right? You take the safe pick, but if you remember now, when I want to say this was Seattle, somebody drafted two quarterbacks in the draft, one in like the first round,
one later.
And one later, and the later one won the job. And it was, I want to say that later one was Russell Wilson in Seattle. Was it not, or was it Seattle signed Matt Flynn to that huge deal?
Maybe that's what it was.
And then they drafted Russell Wilson just late as a backup. I want to say that's what it was. But anyway, you got to be. I like when coaches name not the popular pick, because to me that says they're doing their due diligence and they're picking the guy that's the right guy. But anyway, what about Timmy Chang in Hawaii? Braden Shager, I mean, he can sling it, but he can't throw 14 picks again. He can't do that.
No, I think he'll improve on that. I like Hawaii. I almost had him as a sleeper, but their defense.
Thought you were gonna.
Their defense, man, that they can't stop a nosebleed. But I mean, this receiver room now is loaded with talent, and they're going to throw it 60 times a game. And I think Shager's going to be there right behind BFN as far as at least in stats go. But rooting for Timmy Chang, man. I think he's got that program climbing. If they can just kind of improve that defense a little bit and upgrade the offensive line, I think they got a chance.
Well, I saw some stuff about Timmy Chang, maybe seat getting a little warm. I think that's kind of idiotic.
Yeah,
Listen, I think Hawaii's one of those places where you really have to know and really embrace and really know the culture and that community, because it's different. You're like, I mean, essentially you're in another country. You know what I mean? It's just a completely different culture, completely different lifestyle. Recruiting is different. So you got to keep somebody that knows that, and he's got to do that with assistants too, to attract people. And you're gonna have, it's got to be a certain type of kid that wants to go there. If you're coming over to the mainland to recruit, I mean, but now if they're throwing it around like Timmy Chang did, you're gonna have some wide receivers from California that are gonna want a whole part of that.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Devon Bess, former Miami Dolphin. One of those guys. You ever have those players that's like
Oakland native,
not a
baby.
very big like household name, but you just loved them growing up? That's Devon Bess for me. We're number 15 for the Dolphins in the slot. How about that? San Jose State, new coach Ken Niumatalolo coming over from Navy. Now they will not be running any kind of triple option in San Jose. But San Jose, they won their last 6 last year, and it was them, Jeff. We were trying to figure that out yesterday. It was them that got left out of the 3-way tie.
That's exactly
they came on late. They got to find a QB. Shavon Cordero, I mean, he ain't coming back. So they got to find a QB, and then they got to find some O-line to protect whoever that may be. But I think Ken Niumatalolo, I mean, that's a big-time coach now. Big time program builder. So
and I think he'll resonate in the South Bay. There is a large, Samoan, Tongan, Polynesian contingent out there, and they all ball, man. I played with him in high school. Like, these cats are born big, strong, and fast, and I think he'll resonate really well out there. And if he can recruit and keep some of that talent away from SC, some of these other California schools, he'll give him a few years, and I could see him building something there.
Yeah, New Mexico, another new coach, Bronco Mendenhall. That's a great hire too. I think some of these coaches are kind of on their last. Like, I don't think Bronco Mendenhall is going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? I don't think Ken Niumatalolo is going to go somewhere if they succeed. So I think they've got these guys that if they start succeeding, will hang around. But he's got a lot of work to do at New Mexico. That's just a tough spot. They get crushed anytime they get any kind of production in the portal. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And then Nevada, same thing. 2-10 a year ago. And I want to read you a quote. This is from an anonymous Mountain West assistant coach. So here's your quote. Quote, "The university does not support football at the level of the upper half teams in the league." End quote. Yeah, and you wonder why Jay Norvell and his staff wins the Mountain West, and then they leave to a place that wasn't very good. Because you look at Colorado State, you look at the investment that they've made, the stadium, the facilities, the promotion of the program, and you look at what Nevada's doing. And that's not a shot. Well, it is a shot at Nevada as a university. It's not a shot at their football program, because those kids and those coaches are doing all they can with what they have. And unfortunately, especially in today's day and age, you got no chance if you're not supporting the sport.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's a shame from a few years ago where, we posted that clip a while back where that stadium was rocking, man. That was
absolutely
it's a great
rocking
place to go watch a game. And like you said, the entire coaching staff leaves for a reason, and it's because they don't get supported by the university. We know a little bit about that.
Yep, we sure do. All right, Jeff, let's go back. Most important conference game. I'm going, week 5 is a big week. It is a big week, but that's where I'm going. I'm going Fresno State at UNLV, week 5 in Vegas.
That's a big one. I like that. I'm going Saturday, November 23rd. Boise State travels to Laramie, and I think that game will hinge on Boise State's championship berth or not. I think that's the game to watch.
Most important non-conference game. I actually got 2 of them. The first one I'm going to go with is going to come real early. That's Boise State at Oregon. And I think that's your game. That's your measuring stick to see if Boise State or anybody in the Mountain West belongs in the playoff. And it also, we've been talking about it for a few weeks now. It also is going to be quite telling because the Boise State fans have been really riding the Liberty fans about how bad they lost to Oregon. So if Boise State thinks now, you're probably going to say, well, if Malachi Nelson was the quarterback,
That's exactly what they'll say.
but no, but I think again, Boise State could lose that game, assuming they were to win the rest of them. But they got to put on a good showing. They cannot get blown out by Oregon. But the main one I had, the main
You're
one,
gonna steal mine.
go. You go first.
September 14th. That's it, right?
In Fort Collins or what?
Fort Collins,
Yeah,
Colorado.
buddy.
Prime and the Buffs come to town. And that game is going to be absolutely electric. It's going to be sold out. That stadium's a beautiful place to watch a game. And come on, Rams, take them down,
Yeah.
dude. You do that, I think the wheels fall off of Buffalo if you lose to your in-state rival.
Buddy,
I really do. And they're going to be up for that game.
I don't know. It's really hard to tell what the hell's going on in Boulder with Colorado right now. I mean, I have, from the outside looking in, it looks like a disaster. But supposedly he's brought in a bunch of talent again, but we're seeing how that works. The portal works when it's, hey, we need a couple guys to fill a couple spots. It does not work when you're getting on the pulpit saying your whole team sucks except for your son and your other star player, and you try to flip it like that. But they got guys. I mean, he's, for whatever it's worth, he's got Warren Sapp over there helping coach the D line.
I do like Warren Sapp.
I love Warren Sapp. I think. I mean, I shouldn't say that. He's was unbelievable as a player. Unbelievable. Way before his time as an interior guy. He should have wore a damn single digit.
He should have.
What he should have done. Now 99 was pretty tight too. Now
I don't think they could back then. I think it was against league rules.
Well, and plus the NFL, probably not in the league too. And I don't remember what he wore in college, but anyway, yeah, I had that one too. I think that's the biggest game. I think that's going to be the showcase game. I don't know who else is playing week 3, but I'd be interested to see if game day decides to go back to that one.
That'd be.
And God, if Colorado, if they get by, I hope North Dakota State puts them on their ass in week 1. But if they get by that game, God knows they'll be ranked already. Yeah, all they got to do is win 1 or 2, and they'll be in the top 25 again. So that'll give Colorado State a good chance. But all right, to end the show, Jeff. Who you got and who they beaten in the championship? No divisions in the Mountain West. Sun Belt's the only conference that still has divisions in the group of 5.
I'm going UNLV against Fresno State and the championship game. And I'm taking the running Rebels of UNLV and Matthew Sluka to win the championship.
I'll tell you what, if we get a Mountain West championship game in Vegas.
Oh, we're going.
We may have to. Especially, we got to figure out at that point in the season whatever's on the line.
Yeah.
If one of those teams is sitting there at 11-1 and it's a potentially playoff game, we might have to do it. I think UNLV is going to be there. The reason I have UNLV in there is because they get both Boise State and Fresno State at home, so I think they got a chance to win one of those 2 games at least. But I'm going chalk, man. I think Boise State's going to be there, and I think Boise State in big games. I know I'm falling guilty. I'm falling into the trap, but they just do. I mean, they as a program, they win big games, and I think they're going to do it again. So I got Boise over UNLV. That is all we got.
Voicemails.
We got 2 voicemails.
We got 2.
My God, Jeff.
We actually have 3, but I'm going to save our boy Terry Johnson's, and I apologize, Terry. You called in a couple days ago, and I missed it. But we got the Sun Belt coming up tomorrow. So I'm going to save your call for the Sun Belt show, and we'll talk about it. But let's get to our first one down in Statesboro.
Group of 5 guys.
He's back.
Long time since I've called in. It's Wednesday here in Perry, Georgia. Beautiful, beautiful Perry, Georgia. And, man, I'm excited for some football. I know y'all are too. I'm going to keep it kind of short and sweet. J.C. French, official starter of the Georgia Southern Eagles. Gotta love it. I'm excited for Boise State. Of course, y'all know all the big names, like Jalen White, J.C., list goes on. But I got a couple guys I want y'all to take a look out for this year. Dalen Cobb, number 17. He's going to get a lot of catches this year. And I'll give you one on the defense side of the ball. Chance Gamble, believe he's wearing number 31, cornerback transfer from Kennesaw State. Two guys to look out for, in my opinion, this year. Hail Southern, Matt Sprouse, can't wait to see you in Statesboro, man. As always, go Eagles. Thank you, guys. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you, brother.
Perry, Georgia is nice, by the way.
Is it?
Really up and coming. Up and coming. Yeah,
Nice.
It's out there towards like Macon, which Macon, it kind of got some rough spots. But Perry is like where you would live potentially if you worked in Macon or Warner Robins. But nice spot.
Hey, we saw Dalen Cobb at the spring game when we were down there. Dude's a baller. He can play.
Is he the guy that we were talking about? Like he's the one to watch,
guy.
right?
Yeah, he's that smaller guy, number 17.
We'll have to before I go down there, we'll have to trade some notes to make sure I go in there and check eye test on all these guys.
Yeah, no question. All right, well, let's get to our next call.
What's up, guys? Zach Green here. Just calling in to talk some Liberty and CUSA since I didn't call in on CUSA Day. I'm not going to talk a lot about Liberty in this one. Maybe I'll call next week and talk in a little more detail. But I will say that the standard for us this year has to be 13-0. The coaches are going to rightly emphasize 1-0 every week, and that's the right thing to do. I get it. But from the outside perspective, the standard has to be 13-0. Does that mean we can't have a successful season without being 13-0? Absolutely not. Success, there's a few different ways you could get at success this season, even if we don't quite hit that 13-0 mark. So I'm not going to be utterly disappointed if we don't hit 13-0. It's not going to be a failure. But that has to be the goal, and I think that just goes without saying. So I'm really excited about this season. I'm glad we're at a position where that can be the goal, because that's exciting. That's just big stuff for us. So really excited about that. But just from a CUSA perspective, one thing I really want to advocate for, as if I could do anything about it, is a Conference USA rivalry week. It's crazy to me that the rivalries we only have a few, but then again, we only have 10 teams. And last year we only really had 2 rivalries. The rivalries that we have are played at random times of the year. I think New Mexico State UTEP may have been a midweek, and Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky was also. What I think we need is a weekend, a Saturday, not the last week of the season because a lot of students will be gone, but let's say maybe the first weekend in November after the October midweeks are done, where the rivalries we all have are played on that day, and they're publicized, and they've got the best TV network they can get within our package. So maybe all on CBS Sport Network and one on ESPNU or something. And you get 100 Miles of Hate played on the same day. You get Battle of I-10, I think it's called, between UTEP and MTSU, and then you get Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State playing each other because apparently those schools, some of those people hate each other, and they're really not that far away. So let's get those games on the same day, man. It's crazy to me that they're played all at different times. And then the other teams can play each other. Maybe Sam Houston and Louisiana Tech, since they're not all that far away, could develop a rivalry or something. I don't know. That's just what I think. But excited about this season. Think Conference USA has a chance to kind of start climbing up the pecking order in Group of 5 a little bit. Some good non-conference opportunities. Definitely not going to step up to that number 1 spot this year, but I think we can make some inroads, and I'm excited about that. Starting on Thursday night, August 31st, 29th with Jack State and Coastal. That's going to be an awesome game. Excited about it. It's almost here, baby. Thank you guys for what you do. Tip, we miss you. Can't wait till you come back. Go Flames.
He's spot on with that.
Who would Liberty play?
I don't know. I'm not
See,
sure.
I think I mean, I hate to say it, but I think Liberty's developing. I think Liberty and Middle is developing into, because they've played some really good games, and I know that's some bias to it, and I know Middle's got Western.
Yeah.
But to be honest, the games between Middle and Liberty have been better as of late. Western's been beating the hell out of Middle. So,
well, not only in that, last year in the women's Conference USA tournament, Middle's women and Liberty's women's teams, like, they were going at it and it was chippy and it was physical. So, I mean, I could see that for sure. But we got to get these. I hate the fact that we have 100 miles of hate. Week 3 this year drives me nuts. Some people like it.
I don't. Well, I'll tell you why I like it, because I'm worried that if it's late, one or both of the teams will not be good anymore. You know what I mean? The season will be washed by then.
Fooey.
But I'm glad that it's at middle and it's week 3, because if it was week 7 or 8 at middle, he probably wouldn't have much of a showing. But anyway, that's all we got for you guys tonight, guys. Keep calling that hotline, 615-900-4286. Having everybody, Zach Green, Josh Bevel back, Terry back. I mean, if it means football's back. But we will catch you tomorrow morning with the Sun Belt. Go back and watch Conference USA, MAC, American. That's all we got for you guys this morning. Follow all the socials at Group of Five Guys. Like, subscribe, all of that. Y'all have a great day.